Welcome to another episode of Beyond Four Walls, the podcast where we delve into the stories and experiences that shape the block management sector and exploring the lives and careers of those who make a significant impact in this industry. I'm your host, Jodie Fraser, and today we have an incredibly special guest joining us, Steve Grimsley. And Steve is a seasoned recruitment professional with over 2 decades of experience in the block management sector. And throughout his career, he has successfully placed hundreds of talented individuals in rewarding roles, creating strong partnerships with top companies in the industry. In 2009, Steve founded TemplePM, a recruitment agency dedicated to providing exceptional service to both candidates and clients, and his deep understanding of the block management sector, combined with his commitment to building lasting relationships, has positioned TemplePM as a trusted partner to numerous businesses. And beyond his professional achievements, Steve is a dedicated community member. He has served as chairman of the local primary school and rugby club and was a parish councilor, giving back to his community while developing invaluable leadership skills. And not to mention, Steve is a passionate rugby player, still competing at the first team level at the age of 45, demonstrating the importance of teamwork, perseverance, and maintaining a positive attitude. Thank you so much for being with me today, Steve. Great to have you.
No, thank you very much.
So what initially drew you to the crazy world of recruitment and then to kind of go into block management at the same time?
Well, it was one of the things where, and I've listened to the podcasts, and I don't think anybody plans to be in block management. We can talk about it later because I think that's one of the things that the TPI need to massively do. No, I started off in sales. I was a salesman. I was a fitness instructor, sales. That was my sort of route into recruitment, something I really enjoyed. Worked on a high street agency, then went specialised, and then went to a company called Thomas Jeffrey. Thomas Jeffrey at the time did a lot of property recruitment, and block management was the sort of sector I was asked to work on.
So the story behind founding your company, is there a particular vision that you had or just a drive with your sales background?
What it was Thomas Jeffrey. It was me and a gentleman called Stuart Smith. Stuart was already working within the sector and, you know, HML Andertons and all the companies, because at that time, Aeronacious was just buying companies up. Grace Fine was just bought, I think, at that time. So it was a very interesting time within the industry, and I got really connected with the people I was talking to. Alan Coates is probably one of the main people from HML. He was not like a mentor of mine, but somebody that I spoke to on a regular basis. And if anybody knows Alan, he's somebody that has definitely got an opinion, but so knowledgeable. So we did that for 2 years, bought loads of great relationships, and then we had the first, in sort of my sort of working career, was the first recession, where Thomas Jeffrey then decided to, we had quite a few people working there, to start making redundancies in the different sort of avenues. And at that time, I thought to myself, I'd rather be in charge of my own destiny, and decided to go, okay, I know the sector quite well. I've got some really good connections. And I started off for 6 months working for a company called K2 Recruitment, which is based in Bicester. And during that whole time, I was sitting there going, why am I doing this for somebody else when I can do it for myself? And that became the reason for me to go, right then, hold on, I should be doing this for myself. So after 6 months, I decided, let's give it a go. And at the time, it was a bit crazy because I thought, hold on, I've got a good reputation. I've had 2 years work, or 2.5 years working for Thomas Jeffrey. I've now told everybody I'm working for K2. This is my new sort of home. But the more I sat there, the more going, I should just be doing this for myself.
Yeah.
And yeah, just took the leap, changed the name, which was, thinking third business or third change in three months, well, not 3 months, but in a period of 6 months. How's the industry going to see it as? Because I know for a fact that when you got like a block manager, when they're working for a company and then they leave and they go and work for somebody else, and then they might speak to some people, then they go, actually, it hasn't worked out, and then they're in another position within another 6 months. I know it does happen in the industry, and I was like, give it a go. But since then, since 2009, TemplePM's been out there, and to be honest, it's probably been predominantly focused on block management when we probably shouldn't have had, because obviously that mouse story with cheese probably seeing the world changing at the moment. It's probably becoming a lot smaller because of the fact that all the bigger boys are starting to buy out all the
Mm.
medium-sized boys, and then the medium-sized boys. Yeah, it's been an interesting time since 2009.
Yeah, well, certainly sounds it, but has it been rewarding, or is there a particular moment that you've found the most rewarding as part of your journey?
Recruitment is so unique because we get so much enjoyment from when a person says, yes, this is the great opportunity for me. But at the same time, we've also get the most negative feelings as well when a candidate goes, yes, 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 no.
Yeah, yeah.
And as much as you put all that effort in, and as much as you know it's the right choice for that candidate, they're people and they have their own minds, and you can't change somebody's mind once they've made it. The most highlight is when you give somebody a great job and you know that they're going to do really well, and then you get the feedback from them throughout the years that they're there. And then the negative most feeling is probably when someone goes, yes, 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 and decides not to take the job when you put all that time and knowing that they're going to be brilliant at it and knowing that they've made a mistake of staying where they are. That's the most annoying thing. But the most rewarding was every single time you make a placement, every single time that person goes, thank you, Steve, you gave me that, you put me into this position. I've
Mm.
done really well.
Do you offer things like coaching and mentoring for your candidates, or is that something that you might do in the future?
One of the things when people say, what's a great recruiter? And we're a great recruiting business. Now, the reality is that everybody's a good recruiter if they've got a great candidate. If you've got a bad candidate or a candidate that doesn't go as well as you think, so every time you're speaking to somebody, you're always coaching. You're always going, what's your, how you think about going for this interview? Or I've never been for an interview for such a long time. Giving people back their confidence is one of the biggest things that I find from within the sector is,
Okay.
I've been at this organization, I'm feeling really run down. I'm not sure if I want to do this sector anymore. Yeah, I want to move away from the sector. And it's like, well, hold on. What do you like about the sector? What then? Let's look at maybe a company that's different to you. The mentoring, the coaching is always there. And even on the opposite side with the hiring manager, the recruiter, there is that coaching element as well. It's like, okay, cool. You might want to see all the fishes in the sea, but there is not many fishes in the sea at this moment in time because it's such a strapped industry for good candidates. And then I want to see five people. I want to see six people. I want to spread it out over a period of time. And it's like, well, the reality is that by the time you like the first person, it's like when you take your wife to the shop and you go into like, from the first shop, they really like that. They're not quite sure. And you got to go into like six shops and then them to go, actually, I really like the first item. But the problem is with the recruitment is the time you go back to the first item, the candidate's gone.
Yeah.
And it's about coaching each scenario. It's about what's going to be best for your organization. Can we get this person over the line? Will this person stay for your business for a long term?
Why do you think that there's not many fishes left in the sea or good fishes? Do you think that's, people are leaving the industry for,
Yeah,
certain reasons, or how do you feel about that?
if you look at the industry at the moment, I think especially senior people, especially when they've been in the industry for like 10, 15 years, they tend to say, right then, I want to change completely. I get a lot of candidates from different sectors say, I want to be a block manager. And as soon as
Okay.
they say, yeah, I really want to be a block manager, but then I ask them what salary they're on. So they're on what a senior block manager would be on. And then you go, well, would you take a 10 grand pay cut? And that person will probably say no. The differences I'm finding in our sector is that actually people will say yes. So when they're moving out of the sector, they will take a 10 grand cut to go into something different. So they can then do maybe commercial, maybe less client side, more client side, and more away from residents, especially with the more legislation coming in and the Health and Safety Act. People are going, I don't want to deal with high rise. I just don't maybe want to do the industry. There has been historically, I think, especially with the when IRPM and especially with Armour, there has been no feed. There's no feed into this industry. We don't have a tap which is open, which a great bunch of candidates are always coming through. What Rix has got, which on the surveying side that you have, is that there is always people trying to do their APC. There's courses at
Yeah.
university. People know it's a career which they can go into. If you speak to 10 people today, probably one out of the 10 within the industry know it's block management. Maybe said, okay, I saw that. Maybe you've done a bit of that at university, or I sort of did a real estate degree, and I want to maybe go into that sector. Nobody else knows it. And as we
Mm.
both said at the start, we both fell into it. We need to have a fee. There needs to be more done with universities. We need to get a course going to university that offers block management candidates out,
Hmm.
because it's not a great sector. If you ask a candidate, what's the things you dislike about this industry, you get paid well and it is a career, but you don't get many thanks. It's constant being on reactive rather
Hmm.
than being proactive, because there's no time to do stuff. I think that if we can get more people into the industry from a graduate level, from an out of school level, like A level level, to say, right then, let's be radical. Let's just say every single block management company out there will take on 2 students every year, and we'll help fund it, help fund their learning. And them 2 students will then add into the sector, instead of us losing that top because they've lost the interest, they don't want to do it anymore. They do want to get out of the sector, and it's experienced people. And I guess one of the biggest issues is that because of the bigger boys coming in and taking all the medium-sized businesses, people don't like the way that they're now no longer in control of a lot of stuff. Their processes are now 10 times longer because they have to go through the different departments. That is another big element, I think, that you'll find is, unless they then start their own business, which a lot of them will end up doing because that's just a natural cycle, like Aeronautius did. People came out, started their own stuff because they can do it better. But what the big companies can offer is, we've got all of this and we can have all of that, and we've got money behind us to spend on that to get to where we need to be.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think as well, the bigger companies, if you start working for a bigger company, and I'm not bad mouthing anyone here, but if you are just coming into the industry and the first job you get is with a huge company that's got a department for everything, I think you don't learn anything as a new property manager because, well, that department does that or that department does that. Even though you've got to be client facing, you've got to go to the AGMs, you've got to sit in front of a client and talk about their accounts, but somebody else has prepared those accounts. So you don't actually understand how that works. Whereas the way I learned was coming up through the ranks, I suppose, in slightly smaller companies where you did have your hand in everything. So you had a level of understanding for most things that you had to deal with and you had to advise on. And don't get me wrong, it's 10 times worse now because you're expected to know, you're expected to be a lift engineer and an electrician and a plumber and a building safety expert, and you've got to have all of that as well now. But it's
it's,
it's
it's
a tricky industry now, it really is.
Yeah, well, it's back to front. It's back to front because the smaller businesses, as you rightly say, they train their block managers up correctly. So they train them up on the basis that you need to learn everything about block management. If you've got a candidate who's in that environment and then goes to one of the big guys, they go into that environment, they go, right, then I can do everything. Hold on, now you're slowing me down. If you get somebody coming from that one of the big companies to a smaller company, I'm on 42K. I've done it 2 years, 3 years. This is the sort of salary that I'm now on. Hold on, I've come into a smaller company. I've now got to do A. I've now got to do B. Now I've got to do C. I haven't done them before. It
Mm.
doesn't work.
Yeah,
So
I completely agree.
it's completely topsy turvy because they're asking for senior block management money in a smaller business. And yes, they may have done 4 or 5 years within that large organization, but they haven't done the breadth of everything, which is what a smaller person would have. Well, not
Mm.
smaller person, but a smaller business would have.
Yeah.
People are aware of that within the industry, yeah. But we've got to make a whole industry effort for everybody to bring people in
Mm.
and then fund that from a fund which everybody's paying into. So, which is,
Yeah.
the TPI should be really, really pushing that way. And I think, in a way, that will be a better way, and it might be a little bit controversial, but that might be a better way to actually spend money rather than trying to get everybody under one umbrella. Because the
Hmm.
reality is it's been so difficult to get to be regulated.
Yeah.
The reality of that's taken such a long time for it to be done.
Mm.
I can see that being quite difficult if there is 2 big groups, and if them 2 big groups are actually going to be able to come under that umbrella again at the same time. There's actually more impetus of actually going, right, then we need more block managers in the industry, because if we
Yeah.
can bring in more block managers, that means that pressures on everybody having 1,000 units or their evenings dealing with, I think one of the candidates said to me the other day is that they go on holiday for one day and they come back on a Monday and they've got 400 or 500 emails sitting in
Mhm.
there. That's unrealistic. That can't be managed. If you take one day out, but if you had more people within the business, if you've had more block managers, if you had more people who can actually do the role, you can spread that out. You can spread
Mm.
that out. Well, I know that goes down to cost, and I know that also goes down to having that time to train people up. But I think if the TPI spent more money on that tap about getting people into the industry, I think that everybody will be sitting here now going, great, we've got some really good people and we can keep the people because they're not under as much pressure.
And I do know from the conferences that I've been to and various other events that there is a lot of talk around, working with government to make property managers become regulated and that sort of thing, but also to turn us into like an actual profession like you would as a surveyor. So as you say, more people are going to start coming through because it's mentioned in a careers day or whatever it's called, if they still do those.
Well, if they can have like full universities that offered a block management course where
Mm.
people, because we know that if they've done that course for 3 years at university level, come out with an MIRPM as well, so
Yeah.
MTPI.
Yeah.
If they come out of that as well as their block management degree, you're going to be sought after by everybody because they
Yeah.
would have a really good fundamental of everything within the sector. 30 students a year. Say if you did that in 3 universities, that's 90 new people who would be junior block managers. We know that there's a career there for them because everybody's asking for property managers, block managers, and they're set up for life.
And it has moved on a little bit because there's the apprenticeship scheme now, isn't there, that people can do to get their ATPI and MTPI. My colleague's doing it at the moment, so through, I think various companies offer it, and you get the social housing aspect of that
Yeah,
qualification as well.
I think that's great, and I think that's good. I don't disagree with that. That's very good within businesses like yourselves. But again, it's just that level below. Why would they want to come into the industry? What,
Yeah.
sell it, sell it. It's a good career. People, once you've done 2 years in block management, you've got a career for life. In fact, what I'm seeing nowadays, if you've done 6 months, people will look at you. People will
Mm.
look at somebody with a year. If we can get them earlier, if we get them at finishing A levels, finishing degrees, where can they come into the business? But how can we help fund that? Because if we can help fund that, then I think that would help
Yeah.
push up. Because smaller businesses can't afford it because obviously they've got to make sure that the service charge is at a certain level so they can compete.
Yeah.
And then you get them people coming in and go, right, then we can put you on a apprenticeship. We can put you onto this thing. This is government thing, but let's talk about it. Let's celebrate it. Let's go into schools, go into the local universities, go into the local colleges. This is something that we can offer. Definitely help.
So since you started in the industry, I mean, I started 18 years ago, so I feel really old now. How have you seen the sector evolve, not just around candidates, but in general, and what people are saying to you, when they're coming to you for new jobs, how has that evolved?
I think COVID's evolved it massively
Mm.
from people now wanting to work from home. One of the biggest things I would say that most businesses didn't have a working from home policy. COVID hit, everybody realized they can do the job at home. And then now that there is a desire from candidates, more than I say clients' side, is that they want to have a flexibility of working from home for more than they've ever had. So COVID did change that element to it. I also said I saw the arenaceous bubble grow and I saw it burst. However, this time round, I'm not seeing it as going to burst or because instead of just one big company buying up all the medium-sized business companies, there seems to be two of them.
Hmm.
And then the middle ones are buying up the smaller ones as well to make themselves look big as well. And I'm sure there is this thing where they might get eaten by even the bigger companies above them. But then what I see from that is that they tend to start their own businesses up, and the smaller businesses start coming through. So there's that natural progression. So I see that coming through. From what people tell me, candidates have more choice. If they don't like a scenario where previously they'll stick stuff out, they don't do so now. They'll
Okay.
go, right then, I've got another opportunity. And then they'll go and try that. and then they'll try maybe one other, and then they might go, this isn't for us. Whereas previously, I would say the candidates within the industry would give it a year, give it 2 years. Let's see how it goes. Let's see. And I think that's what we used to do. Be like, you go into a company, the first maybe 3 months haven't been the best, but you stick it out, and then it gets better, and then it becomes a place that you really like working. People just don't give that the time anymore. They go, actually, it's not what I want. It's not what I thought it was going to be. I've decided to leave. I think the technology is definitely helping. I think AI is going to be a massive thing that's going to change a lot of stuff. And I think the TPI, what I did really like is I did think that before the change and before the complete merger, I saw the need of the qualification becoming a really big thing from a period of time. Whereas I think there was a big strive to become AIRPM, and then I want to get my MIRPM. And since the change, I think people are now a little bit confused to say, okay, cool, we still want to get it, but is it that important? Because clients aren't asking for people with that qualification, whereas previously they were. But I think again now might be due to the fact that there isn't that many candidates within the industry.
Yeah, I was about to say, do you think that's because that it's
Yeah,
although it's important and it's more, but certainly for me when I'm recruiting, it's more important to get the right person because
yeah,
you can train them once they're in the job, but you can't teach people skills, certainly in this industry.
yeah.
You've got to be a certain type of person to work and thrive in an industry like this. Are there any challenges, I guess? You've got what the client wants, and I'm guessing the client would want a qualified property manager if they could. If you couldn't match that, how are you finding,
Yeah,
the
so
client's needs against candidate pool, if you like?
yeah, candidates once. I think clients are. I'm going to ask you a question. So tell me the 5 things that you would want from a candidate. So if I said to you, Jodie, you say, Steve, find me a block manager. What's
Hmm.
the 5 things that you want?
Oh gosh, personable, somebody who can be empathetic. Well, you put me on the spot now. Qualified would be great, but then you've got to teach people how to use your
Do it your way.
systems and
Yeah.
do it your way, yeah, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, qualified, but I would put that sort of lower down the list. It wouldn't be as important necessarily if it was the right person, as I said earlier. I find things like grammar and spelling and that sort of thing, if there's a neurodiverse issue going on, then that's we'll work with that and all that kind of thing. But like the basics of being able to not just speak to somebody, but being able to write a decent email. And because, as you said earlier, 400 emails a day kind of thing is you get a lot of them. Just somebody's got good work ethic.
So for me, I hear from in there, the most important thing for you is A, firstly, does they get on with the rest of the team? Because
Yeah.
ultimately, is that the most important thing?
Hmm.
Secondly, then I heard is the grammar and stuff. So then I'll be looking for somebody who's got good qualifications,
Okay.
maybe good English and so forth, unless they're dyslexic like me, and they
Mm.
understand that they can use AI because AI is the most amazing
Oh,
thing.
absolutely. There are so many tools now.
Ah, for,
It's
for a dyslexic person, the AI is the missing part of the bit in our brain when we're writing an email. So it learns how we think. If I was to write you a letter, you go, oh yeah, he's missed that, or but in my head it's perfect. I see
Mhm.
that line perfectly. But the AI goes, ah, that's what he's meant to say. Bang, bang, bang. So
Yeah.
if you can use that's great. So I'd be looking for somebody who can fit into your team with the personality that you guys have got. I'd be looking for somebody who's got good grammar in English, unless they've can good understanding of AI. And thirdly, the thing ultimately is that level of experience. So it's almost like, what level do you want this person to be coming in at? And now, if you said to
Mm.
me, Steve, I want somebody with a year or 2 years experience, I'd be looking at again, is it an organization that they do everything? Is it an organization that they only do a little bit? Is it an organization where everybody has their set roles? Would that suit Joe? So when you're so when you get that information from a client to say that's what I want, it's my job then to break it down into a person or to a certain thing.
Mm.
They go, actually, who would that match? Who would that match as a candidate wise? And then once you've got the understanding of the client and going, right now, I can understand how this person is thinking now. I know what kind of person Jodie would like. So
Okay.
then it might take a little bit longer because there isn't that person, but I might actually go, I know somebody Jodie's gonna love, and Jodie's gonna meet you're gonna meet him and you're gonna think this is the right person for me. And I think that's the bit where you go, I understand the business, I understand the candidate, what's gonna match. Because and there is cowboys out there and there is people's and there's been times when you put a candidate into an organization that hasn't worked. So you
Hmm.
can't control that. But every single person that I deal with is not I want it to be a long term thing. I want it to be something that's a success. But you go, Steve, that was really good.
Mm.
That is ultimately what I want you to come back to me. Not that you found me a great person. I want it to be in 6 months' time and might be in a year's time, that person's progressed. That's how I would love to happen. So if you can find the right candidate, but then it's then saying to you, okay, good. If you're looking for this, this, and this, ultimately, what's your outcome? Where do you want this person to be? Because if you go for this, this, and this person is probably going to come in and leave in a year's time because they
Mm.
want too much progression. What kind of so it's that's you said to me about the coaching bit earlier.
Yeah.
What you it is that's the relationship I think between the recruiter and the hiring manager. If you can have, it makes perfect sense because then
Mm.
you start to understand. And it goes back. This is the bit what I'm a bit curious about, especially with the larger businesses, because a lot of people have their own in-house recruiters now.
Okay.
But the in-house recruiters, it's almost like Chinese whispers. So when a person goes to you, you then say to their hiring manager, then I'm looking for this kind of person. Then the hiring manager may come out to somebody like me to say, Steve, can you help me find this person? The hiring manager might not be asking you the questions that I want to ask you the questions to find out exactly the kind of person that you're looking for. But they might give me the wrong information because they haven't picked it up for you correctly. So when we get asked to look for somebody, it isn't really what you're looking for. Good companies, good recruiters work well with the hiring manager, the person looking for the person. So
Yeah.
again, the more I speak to you, the more I get to know about what you kind of person that you would like. And
Mm.
if you can keep that conversation, and it's like you were working with a block. If you're working with a residence block, so you know RMCs and you know the kind of people that they are, you might go, actually, my block manager A won't get on with them as well as block manager B. So
Mm.
maybe I'll ask block manager B to look after that block because that's the kind of person that we're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes total sense. And it flips to contractors as well sometimes. And don't get me wrong, my contractors are all brilliant. But I certainly know in the past when I've worked for other people rather than in my own business that, there's certain contractors and I think they're not they're not going to get on with Mrs. Blogs,
You won't tell them there.
kind of
Yeah.
thing. So I just wouldn't send them because I know, I don't know, she's a bit, she doesn't like certain things or she thinks that that guy's a bit of a cowboy when he's not, but I just don't want
Yeah,
the drama and
yeah, you might come across as a little bit laddie, and some people don't like that. And it's the same as when dealing with recruitment. If you can, everybody can say they're great recruiters. Every company says, "Oh yeah, we're the best." Ultimately, you're as good as your last candidate
mm,
in anybody's eyes. You're as good as your last candidate. If the candidate comes in and does a very good job, then the client's going to look at you and go, "You're amazing. Carry on. Please find me some more." And going back 20 years ago, I know some of the questions that you might ask, what would I say to myself? I probably said to myself back in 2009, Steve, tell everybody that you'll do all their recruitment for a ridiculously low fee. And then let
yeah.
everybody just come to you and you will then dish it out for people. But the problem is with recruitment is that if I go sole person for everybody, you just won't be able to fill that role. You just
Yeah.
won't be able to fill it for everybody. And I think it's so unique the relationship you have with the hiring manager
Mm.
and with the candidate. That is definitely the first bit.
Yeah, it's got to fit, hasn't it? Otherwise, it's just, personalities have got to fit as well as qualifications and stuff like
Yeah,
that. But so if you would, if somebody came to you and said, well, I quite fancy being a block manager,
yeah.
what qualities do you think you would look for in somebody new, completely, never done block management before, never even done property management before? What do you think are the best qualities for somebody coming into the industry?
From what I see, I think that have you ever heard of the red, the yellow, the green, the blue?
Yeah, yes, I can't remember what it's called though, but I know what you mean.
Okay, so there's like psychometric tests. There's
Yeah,
loads of different
that's it.
psychometric
Yeah.
tests. I reckon that if you did an average block manager, they will be blue and green. And blue likes lists. They like lists to go through, and they like, if I'm correct with the green, they've got empathy and they like to help people. Whereas you have red, which is very salesy, and you've got
Okay.
yellow, who's very good at building, like a good business development manager, I would say would be yellow.
Okay.
Now, if you looked and say what would be a manager, I would say most would be green and blue.
Okay, that makes sense. I probably sit in green and blue. Love a list.
Love a list because if you guys don't have your lists, because I always thought to myself, could I ever be a block manager? I could never be a block manager because I think that you have to have your lists. You have to be able to react. You have to be compassionate. You have to be able to multitask. If you can multitask as a block manager, that's great. So if I was going to find somebody from a graduate, I would look for somebody who maybe done a law degree because their attention to detail is going to be really good. I'd be looking for somebody who has maybe not the most outgoing. Because if you speak to somebody again, the salesy person, you go, "Mm, probably won't work because
Mm,
it's not about driving what you think that somebody should have in the world of block management because a lot of block management is reactive. It's like you got to remember you're you're working for them. So I think someone said to me the other day that they're looking for a block manager that knows their stuff, is confident, but is unconfrontational. So they could obviously know the stuff. So even when the fact that they know they're right, they don't be boastful enough to go, right then, I'm right, you're wrong. Um,
okay.
because it's about building that relationship. And by
Yeah.
building the relationship, okay, Mr. Smith, we've been able to do A, B, C. We said we can do C after we've done B. Now we're in the right position. So when you're
Yeah.
looking for that person to come in the industry, you're looking for people who have got that skill set.
Okay.
Some
Interesting. Mm,
somebody that you think that you can go right, and multitasking, great with lists. I like it when I get asked to look for an administrator because an administrator is like the guts of a good block manager in the
mm,
future. If you can get somebody new to the industry, somebody who hasn't been in there, so what would you look for?
yeah.
I wouldn't look for myself. If I had
Yeah.
a mirror, I wouldn't be like, no, you're not a block manager. And I think I would have loved to do, and I think some part of me would still love to do it, will be a business development guy within the industry because I don't think there's many people in
Mm,
the industry that does that.
I can
And
see
Helen,
that. I could see you
yeah,
doing that.
well, it's interesting because Helen, who was on your podcast a couple of weeks ago, I placed Helen at Remus all them years ago. She didn't have they did everybody does it differently as well. Everybody does it differently. So if you go back to the Remus when Helen joined Remus, they found the person and built an office around the person, which is quite different to say what people are doing now. They tend to say, right, then you're going to look after that area, then we'll maybe find you some staff in that area. But what Remus did at the time is that they actually found the person to be in that area, to know that area, then to build around it with that person's knowledge, which I thought
Okay.
was a really interesting concept. But again, it's it's looking at people and going, okay, I want you to be such a success because that's ultimately how you get the biggest buzz of doing this job.
No, I agree. Definitely. And Helen is awesome. So so good one there, getting her into the industry.
Well, she was already in the industry. I think she was working for at the time Mainstay. So, but again, I think at the time, I spoke to Helen the other week saying, I've listened to your podcast. I'm going to be on there soon. What was it like? She goes, it was a little bit scary at the start.
Oh, well, I hope you
um,
put both of you at ease, so that's cool. But I ask pretty much every guest who's part of our industry common misconceptions, either about recruitment or block management. What do you think?
well, when I tell people what I do and what sector I work in, they all called me Chandler Bing. Because
Okay.
nobody knows what block management is. So they're like, we don't know what you do, what sector you work in, even though we hear you talking about it all the time. So yeah, that's probably the bit there I would say is that nobody knows what block management is without out of the industry. Biggest misconception. Um, well, firstly, in recruitment, the biggest thing that recruiters don't have any power over is when a candidate joins a business. So when that candidate walks through the door of
Hmm.
your business, the recruiter has no control. The control's gone. And I think the misconception is, as a recruiter in this industry, that we should know or we should be able to change that person's the fact that they've decided not to come in anymore, to say that they've decided to leave after 3 months. It's not been for them. We haven't got any control over a candidate once they walk into your business. And I think this is one of the biggest things that clients need to be doing is looking at their onboarding process. So, biggest misconception I would say is that we haven't got no control after a candidate joins an organisation, and I think people's perception is that we do, and the answer is we don't. We spend maybe 2 hours with a candidate. They walk into your business, and they're spending weeks,
Yeah.
months with you guys. So that's why I think the biggest misconception is.
Okay. Interesting. Just to flip it to your personal life, I mentioned about you being a rugby player. Has that experience influenced your professional career at all in a way? Like, I guess the discipline of playing sport can help in a business setting, but tell me in your own words.
think it's been interesting when I've gone and meet a client or meet a candidate and I've got a black eye. The face looks like I've been fighting. I don't. I think everybody's different. I think everybody's got that element of like that's my hobby. What I found from I like being in a team. My heart emphasis is a team emphasis. If I was in a sales environment, I'm not one of them individuals that I like to be the best in that team, but I'm not somebody who wants to be on my own and
Mm.
out on my own. So maybe if I was a runner or if I was a golfer or something which is or a tennis player, which is just a very much a one person game. I
Hmm.
think what being a part of a team means to me is that it's making that commitment. It's making I go to training on Tuesday, play a game on Saturday. People like cry off because it's a little bit wet, or they might cry off because they don't fancy it. It's that commitment that you can give something. And if you're willing to go through hell, and hopefully the people around you, and if you take that into a work environment, it's great winning as a team, but it's also great having teammates around you when you lose,
Mm.
and you can have that environment in your organisation where it's very much a team built, when we're all in it together. Now, there's always going to be different people because going back to that red green, everybody's different. But if you can have that team emphasis to say, right, then I'm going to get to the A, and we're going to do it all to get to A. We're going to do it together. And if you can show everybody how to get to A and everybody comes with you, that's fantastic. But I also realize that sometimes that maverick who can be amazing doesn't really like being a part of the team. Then you let that person go. You let that not go as in fact leave the company, but you create a role for that person and you may
Yeah.
give that person that thing to say, right, and you just go and focus on that. We'll do this bit, you focus on that bit, but ultimately we're all going to do it together. And I think that's what sports gives me as the basis that it is an element of a team. Even when I'm working with my clients, we're a team. We're doing this as a team. I'm trying to help you get better. You're trying to help me get better. The candidate we're going to come in is going to be part of your team. So if you look at it that way, I would say
Yeah.
it's we all work together, we'll get a
Nice.
result. And if
Brilliant.
we lose, but we've all worked together, it doesn't feel as bad.
I like that. That was a great analogy. And finally, before I let you go, any professional goals you're striving towards or that you want for the future, the next 10 years?
10 years. It's an interesting one. I like the industry to rebalance again. I'm not a big fan of all having the big guys being at the very top
Mm.
and dictating to everybody else, sort of. But I said with that comes other opportunities for people to create their own businesses, which I think that's great. But personally, I have a thing where I want to do, and this is a side thing from not away from TemplePM. I'm a big believer in, and this podcast is an example of it, is legacy. Like when someone passes away, and as we get older, we've all been around people, you go, hold on, I thought they were always going to be there. And they're no longer there. And I just want people to record their story. So it's there for future generations, for people to listen to, because I think that is so important. And you can say that about anything. You can say about somebody leaving the organization and they're retiring. Their knowledge of what they've learned about this industry is immense. And if we can just start to get into the attitude of recording these people and then getting them to tell us like their story about what they did, how they dealt with difficult clients, how they did difficult things, I think that'd be fundamentally change the way that we look at stuff as a business, as life. Because I would love my kids to say to my grandparents when they were here that they did their story. So this is what your grandparents were like. So that's something it's my side hobby. I need to get that off the ground even better because I said as we get older, you realize that people aren't always going to be here anymore. But when you're younger, you think everybody's going to be here forever. Not in a morbid way, because I think if you sat there and you started thinking about that way in a negative, it can be very negative. But if you think actually, let's celebrate it, let's tell everybody. I listen to audiobooks all the time, and I love it when I listen to an audiobook about someone's life. I think the last one I listened to was Suggs's from Madness. Great coming from him. If I could hear my grandparents again from them, and I can hear anybody that I know that at the rugby club is retiring. I want to know his stories. Tell me about what he did when he was when he at rugby club, or even though like Alan Coates would be a great one to do about his time in the industry. Tell us about your time in the industry. Rob Plum, tell us about your time in the industry. And that's probably going back to our previous conversation. I know what's the things I've seen people retiring now, and that level of knowledge is lost.
Yeah.
And when you've been in it like we've been in, so I was in 2006, so 18 years, so probably joined the sector sort of together in that area. It's just that people that you knew were running stuff are no longer running stuff because they've retired. It'd be great if they didn't retire because you still think, oh, I've got that bit of knowledge. And yeah, but that's just the way of the world. And as I said, that's the one thing I want to keep is if we can keep that knowledge in the world.
Yeah.
And if we can do it through an audio book, even better.
Well, I think that's a lovely way to end. How can people find you if they want to connect or
I think
get in touch?
LinkedIn's probably the best one. Connect on LinkedIn. Steve@templepm.com is the other one. But yeah, I think that let's communicate. Let's tell everybody our stories, and let's move forward.
Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been a brilliant chat. Thank you again.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my latest podcast. You can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram. The links are in the show notes. Or you can contact me on jodie@jodiefraser.com. For more content and updates, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your favourite platforms. Thank you once again for listening. Until next time, take care.